Então, boa tarde a todos. Boa tarde a todos. É um prazer enorme estar aqui nesse segundo webinar da liderança feminina promovido pelo IBP. Né? Esse evento vai contar hoje com a minha participação. Eu sou Sylvia Anjos, longa história profissional na Petrobras, vice-presidente atualmente da Associação Brasileira de Geólogos de Petróleo, e estou aqui hoje também como membro do Comitê da Diversidade do IBP. Junto comigo hoje vai estar a Ana Paula Lougon, da Schlumberger, e a vice-presidente da IHS Norte América, Liane Todd. Tá? Próximo slide aí, por favor. Liane, bem-vinda, é a nossa convidada especial. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. And as you know, there will be a mixed Portuguese and English meeting today. Bom, existe essa série de liderança feminina em pauta, né, do IBP. Só para uma breve história para vocês, em 2018, o IBP criou a Comissão de Diversidade e foi uma iniciativa vinda de um grupo de mulheres que se reunia mais informalmente, né, liderada pela Ana Zambelli, atual presidente da comissão, a vice-presidente Cristina Pinho, né, que hoje também é secretária do IBP, a Anelise Lara, atual diretora da Petrobras, a Patrícia Padral, da Chevron, e a Carla Lacerda, da Exxon. Esse pequeno grupo iniciou essa comissão que foi formalizada pelo IBP, e no ano passado, 2019, nós tivemos um programa muito interessante, que foi um programa de mentoria, onde mentoras e mentoradas de várias empresas, operadoras e de serviços, se reuniram ao longo do ano, desenvolvendo um programa. Esse ano, esse programa estava para começar, com a questão da pandemia, ele foi empurrado e nós estamos fazendo esses eventos aqui, esses webinars. O primeiro foi o Equidade de Gênero, Mitos e Verdades, com a Ana Zambelli e a Cristina Pinho, e hoje estou eu e a Ana Paula, que fomos também mentoras no ano passado, com esse tema, liderança, e a especial falando sobre Kind Leadership. E no caso de Kind Leadership, a nossa convidada, a Liane Todd, da IHS, é que vai falar. Então, esse evento vai ser o seguinte, nós vamos falar, eu e a Ana falamos 15 minutos, a Liane vai falar uma apresentação por 25 minutos, que é o foco da nossa reunião de hoje, e depois perguntas e respostas. Então, eu peço que vocês enviem as perguntas, que no final nós vamos ter os 15 minutos finais para isso, tá bom? Então, os próximos meses nós teremos essas apresentações aí, fiquem atentos e aguardem aí o comunicado. Próximo, por favor. Bom, por falar em liderança feminina, nada melhor do que a gente ver o que está acontecendo hoje, né? Nesse momento de pandemia, liderança tem feito uma tremenda diferença. Então, é com muito orgulho e satisfação que a gente vê que as mulheres que lideraram da Nova Zelândia, Taiwan, Noruega, Alemanha, Dinamarca, Iceland, praticamente elas estão dando exemplos de como lidar com essa pandemia. E na Harvard Business Magazine mostrou dados como esse aí, dizendo que 6 vezes menos mortes ocorreram nesses países liderados por essas mulheres. Então, são exemplos de liderança feminina que nos enche de orgulho, e nada melhor do que fazer essa referência no dia de hoje, que estamos falando de liderança, estilos e características. Próximo slide. E aqui eu vou chamar a Ana Paula para falar alguns slides, depois eu entro. Ana Paula, por favor.
Gente, os slides estão em inglês para a Liane poder acompanhar a gente. Estou ouvindo um eco. Os slides estão em inglês para a Liane poder acompanhar o que a gente está falando, mas eu vou falar em português. Então, para a gente começar a falar de liderança...
Ana Paula, câmera.
Ah, é? Pronto,
isso,
foi? Foi. E aí, para a gente começar a falar de liderança, a gente vem até na personalidade das pessoas, porque as pessoas elas são diferentes, então elas vão ter comportamentos diferentes baseados na personalidade delas, né? E a gente não está falando, líder não significa ser o chefe, líder é aquela pessoa que motiva, que impulsiona, que consegue realmente criar um espírito de equipe. E é isso que a gente procura em todas as organizações, inclusive as próprias organizações, porque você quer uma equipe que trabalhe em grupo, que trabalhe motivada, que tenha uma pessoa que ela queira seguir para deixar um legado depois. E essa pessoa, esse líder, o bom líder, é aquele que consegue se identificar, se entender na sua personalidade, qual é o seu estilo de liderança e se complementar com os demais, criando exatamente esse trabalho em equipe. E hoje, a Liane, que é a nossa convidada especial, que a Sylvia fez todos esses contatos e fez essa busca muito especial para vocês hoje. Ela assistiu a Liane falando e disse que, puxa, tem que ser ela para vir falar exatamente dessa liderança carismática. E aí a gente vai ter 25 minutos com a Liane depois falando sobre isso com a gente. Deixa eu tentar passar os slides. Aconteceu aqui. Pronto. Então, continuando aquilo que eu estava falando, o que é um líder, né? É esse que consegue atingir positivamente a sua equipe e, com isso, ele vai atingir positivamente a organização. E liderança não é que você nasceu líder, isso é uma coisa que pode ser desenvolvida. E existem ferramentas para que você possa desenvolver essa liderança em você, em como inspirar os demais, como tirar de toda uma equipe o melhor de cada um, como transformar naquele grupo de trabalho muito além de pessoas que estão fazendo coisas técnicas juntas, mas, ao contrário, são pessoas que estão vestindo a camiseta e todas se funcionando e caminhando para frente. Então, de novo, a gente não está falando só de gerentes e a gente está falando de coisas que podem ser desenvolvidas. E o muito importante atrás disso é você entender o seu tipo de liderança para até você poder conseguir equilibrar um grupo com diferentes tipos de personalidades.
Ok. Uma característica, né? Isso que a Ana Paula bem falou, então você pode desenvolver. Espera aí, start video. Calma. Ok. Então, o que a Ana Paula mencionou aí, né, é uma habilidade. E como habilidade, você pode construir, você pode desenvolver. Então, é um projeto de uma vida inteira, não é algo que você vai fazer um curso e aprender. Então, tem algumas características que a gente vai rapidamente passar aqui. Essa capacidade de decisão, capacidade de você tomar decisão com os dados que você tem na hora que você tem. Logicamente, essa capacidade de decisão faz com que os projetos andem, que o negócio vá para frente. E qual o motivo de, muitas das vezes, essa decisão demorar? É que falta o quê? Pessoas, falta conhecimento, há dúvida. Então, cerque-se de pessoas competentes, que você vai ter a capacidade de decisão mais rápido, o negócio vai para frente. E com isso também a questão de resolver problemas, porque o líder vai resolver problema todo o tempo. Então, essa capacidade de decisão e saber que não há problema que não seja suficientemente, que seja tão grande que não possa ser quebrado e fatiado, isso é super importante para você resolver os problemas. A outra coisa é a construção de um time. O líder tem que construir um time, tem que saber construir um time e tem que saber a habilidade para poder ensinar e ser mentor desse time, né? E construir o time não é simples que você precisa ter comunicação e resolver problemas. É um problem solving. E isso são habilidades que nós precisamos desenvolver. Agora, é fundamental ser uma pessoa íntegra. E isso são características do indivíduo, que é a capacidade de você ser honesto, mas simplesmente também bem representar a sua empresa, sabendo que você é uma pessoa também confiável. Então, o dependability aqui é muito importante confiar. As pessoas têm que confiar em você. Tem que ter sua equipe, ou quem quer que você esteja liderando, confie em você. Você pode ter essa equipe bem desenvolvida e com capacidade de superar desafios. Então, dessas características que você pode desenvolver e essas que você tem que seguir com muita firmeza, né? E tem esse ditado aí que é muito importante, né? Que what you do cries so loud that nobody really hears what you say. Então, o que você fala deve ser corresponder ao que você é, ao que você faz, né? Próximo. Ok? Então, aqui, olha só. E para você fazer isso, você tem que se conhecer, né? Então, o autoconhecimento é fundamental, porque você tem que conhecer a sua potencialidade e tem que conhecer também aquilo que você não está tão forte, que você precisa aprimorar. Conhecimento de o que você vai te ajudar a ter uma equipe múltipla que complemente os seus gaps e vai ter uma equipe mais forte, né? A outra coisa importante é desenvolver a competência. Bom, motivar a equipe, uma equipe motivada chega a resultados. E como é que você faz isso? É importante também treinar essa equipe, desenvolver as competências, né? Eu trabalho numa empresa há 40 anos, na Petrobras, e é uma empresa que se prima por isso, por desenvolver competências. Porque ninguém quer como diz o outro, ninguém quer um burro motivado, né? Então, a gente precisa da competência e, logicamente, você conhecendo, formando a equipe, elaborar uma estratégia vencedora, né? As pessoas querem seguir alguém que sabe para onde vai. Vamos lá?
Eu adorei isso, Sylvia. Você tem sempre umas frases ótimas. Ninguém quer um burro motivado, é fantástico. Ou seja, a gente tem que se preparar naquilo que a gente vai fazer, né? E a questão assim do conhecimento é você ser a pessoa certa no local certo. Às vezes você tem um enorme conhecimento, mas não é aquilo que necessita naquele grupo de trabalho. Mas aí você pode ir aprimorando tudo isso e desenvolvendo pessoas, que também é muito importante. Você ter uma competência técnica do que você está falando, essa confiança para poder liderar um grupo, isso faz também total diferença, né? E aí, entrando agora em matéria já mais técnica, e a Liane vai entrar muito mais profundamente nisso, se divide academicamente a liderança em 7 tipos, dependendo das suas características. A primeira delas que a gente fala aqui é aquele que a gente conhece como chefe, né? Aquele líder autoritário, assim, aquele eu mando, você faz. E eu não explico por quê. Então, aí eu paro de ter até aquilo que a Sylvia falou, que tem um bom líder, né? Aquela pessoa que eu tenho a previsão do que eu vou fazer, eu tenho a confiança nela, no que ela vai me dar de resposta e feedback. Esse líder autoritário não é aquele regime mais, eu dito, vocês seguem adiante. Vou dizer que isso é bom ou ruim, são estilos diferentes de liderança, mas é algo que hoje não se procura mais tanto. Esse tipo de liderança se procura mais uma liderança construída junto com a equipe. Uma parte dessa democrática, por exemplo, que é focada no desenvolvimento do grupo. Então, eu conheço exatamente quais são os gaps e as qualidades de cada um desses membros, e aí eu vou colocando as tarefas para que todos caminhem juntos, baseado nessas características, na personalidade, no conhecimento técnico de cada um. A liderança liberal é aquela que eu dou mais ou menos o goal, né? Esse é o objetivo aonde a gente quer chegar, e eu deixo que as pessoas encontrem os seus caminhos para chegar a esse objetivo. Tem a liderança baseada no coaching, que eu vou dando sempre aquele feedback, tanto técnico quanto de liderança, de gerência para as pessoas que estão envolvidas no time. A situacional, essa é interessante, porque nenhuma... tirando talvez a primeira, né, que é uma característica bem marcante, todas as outras você transita entre elas durante a sua vida como líder, como gerente, como membro de trabalho, como um colaborador dentro de uma equipe. Então, essa situacional, você, dependendo do projeto que você estiver, dependendo do momento de carreira que você estiver, você vai coabitar dentro dessa liderança. Então, você encontra meios diferentes dependendo do desafio que você tem. Tem a liderança técnica, que eu acho super importante falar, e desse programa que a Sylvia mencionou, que tão bonito que nós fizemos ano passado e vamos continuar fazendo nos anos que virão, tinham jovens talentosíssimas que no primeiro momento disseram assim, não, mas eu sou técnica. Não, perfeito, e fortemente uma excelente técnica, mas você também pode ter essa liderança técnica, e é muito bom, é muito importante. Poder falar com propriedade, como a Sylvia disse, sobre um determinado assunto e, ao mesmo tempo, ser líder técnica daquele time. Então, o seu foco maior é na parte técnica. E você pode ser uma excelente líder e uma excelente gerente se você foca nesse tipo de liderança. E aí tem a liderança carismática, que, inclusive, a Sylvia começa falando tão bonitamente sobre essas líderes mundiais, de como estão enfrentando o Covid, que é uma liderança que ela é mais maleável. Eu gosto de pensar nela como uma coisa mais acolhedora, né? Carismática é algo mais acolhedor. Você está ali, todo mundo junto, caminhando. E aí a gente tem aqui agora a nossa especialista, que vai dividir com a gente essa efetiva maneira de lidar com crises e atingir resultados com esse tipo de liderança carismática.
Bom, gente, então nós demos uma passada aí bem rápida, né? E uma coisa que, daquele slide das nossas líderes mundiais que estão lidando tão bem com a Covid, E nas revistas eu falo muito de uma característica, que é a humanidade, né? Então, isso não é para a mulher, é para todos os líderes, né? A sua capacidade de ser humanizado e não perder isso numa tomada de decisão, né? Então, vamos falar agora apresentar agora, com muito prazer, a Liane Todd, né? SVP da Upstream Energy, IHS da Norte América, né? Ela tem mais de 20 anos de experiência no upstream de óleo e gás, com focos bem variados, né? Da economia, engenharia, aplicações de geociências também. Ela lidera atualmente o time, né, de Content, Software, Data Science e Insight for Upstream Energy, focada, claro, em North America. She has led both sales, technical, and consulting teams globally in a wide variety of energy offering and applications. With these diverse roles, she has gained insightful knowledge to support improvements in fundamental workflows and leads teams forward in technical and data innovation. Eu queria só dizer que a Liane, quando eu estava organizando isso com a Ana Paula, a minha filha e outras amigas da IHS que assistiram falaram assim: mas você está fazendo isso? Você não pode deixar de falar com a Liane, porque ela deu uma palestra extremamente inspiradora, deixou a equipe de jovens profissionais, engenheiros e técnicos muito motivados, né, e muito empolgados. So, Liane, it's really a pleasure to have you here to tell some of the stories. Please, welcome.
Thank you so much. And I wish this was in Portuguese. I will start with that. So I will be cognizant I am in English here, and I thank everyone for your patience. I will do a screen share here for the presentation. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. Great. All right. Thank you for that opener. I was obviously listening in Portuguese and looking at the slides that were put in English and to the importance of this topic. And I am a huge believer in it. I believe no matter what type of leader, coach you are, how you're working at home, in your community, in your office, this has a place. And we coin it kind leadership. And I think that was a really great example in the beginning, talking about COVID and looking at how certain leaders handle situations. And this is why, if you can really take in this information today, it's a self-reflection. It's a very different brain skill versus a technical development or a business acumen, but it belongs everywhere. And it's a reminder for each one of us as we sit here today and look at ourselves, at that reflection of what it's going to mean to each one of us. So it starts with, what is it? I think we talked a little bit, I saw some of the definitions on different leadership, and why should we care? It's more important than ever. I really do. As I'm mentoring people, I have engineers, geologists, geophysicists, data scientists, I've got financial people, marketing people. No matter who I am talking to, this is a foundational skill set that everyone, right from the day you start, you're in university all the way through to the end of your career, that you should be tapping into and developing. It is something that you really need to be able to bring forward. I saw a couple of things of what is that leadership and those skill pieces. And I think these are really important words to talk about how you bring kindness. And we'll talk about the why after, but how you bring kindness and what those characteristics are of these types of leaders. It's actually about strong communication. More importantly, it's about listening. I think if you are not listening to those that you are speaking with, you will miss things. You will miss things in feedback. You will miss things in the delivery of what you are trying to achieve. And you can think about that in your home life when you ask someone to take out the garbage and they didn't understand what you wanted it now. It is all about how we're going to communicate and then how we're interpreting these pieces. It is our positivity and our passion and our commitment. And I think those words, I hope, will really resonate with you, because it is a passion and it is about being positive, and it is a commitment to tapping in to this empowerment of being a kind leader. It's a collaboration, because it's not just you, it's teams, it's many, it's a community, and it's thinking through how you're operating, how you're speaking, and those that get affected by your own language. So it's a really important part. It is honesty and it is empathy. And many people as leaders, I think, can sometimes struggle with how they are seen in the industry and to those that work for them. And I really have to say there is strength in honesty and being empathetic to others. And we'll talk about that one as well. And there's a diplomacy component to this. I think these words, if you're thinking about your own self and your own development, how do they weave in? Yes, you are going to build yourself in your technical careers, but everything about how you're going to work with others, because that's what this is. You're not alone. You don't work alone. You don't operate in a community alone. It's all part of that communication. So why more today than ever? Disconnect in our interactions and technology challenges. We all just saw this with COVID. We all had to start working at home. Everyone is now on cameras. We are interacting in a different way, and people have to sit there by a camera and understand they don't see your body language necessarily anymore. They have to understand what you were trying to say, how you are bringing forward a problem or want to communicate things. And I think there's that desperation of wanting to see more of understanding for each other. All of a sudden, you might be working at home and you're taking care of maybe parents in your house, maybe it's children, maybe it's spouse, or maybe you're by yourself, but there's all these challenges that happened with COVID that others don't know what's happening in your life, that we have to have a respect for as we're in this leadership moment. And there's a demand and a deeper dialogue, this respect for gender. We're talking age, sexuality. It's so many aspects. The communities are crying for respect. That's part of the culture of building a really respectful place. It's going back to that, all of those words that I said above there. If people were actually practicing this and really thinking of how they integrated with their community and their workplace, it really does help build a strong culture and respect. And there's an awareness and a deeper demand as well for how leadership is woven into the culture of the company. When you think about the culture of your company, you do look to how the leadership, you look at how your managers operate, how their managers operate, how your CEO operates. It is woven and people are paying attention to it. Does my company care? Does my manager care? Do those around me care? I have challenges, because it's more than just a work component. And this is one of the most important business levers, I really believe, that we can change and influence our own workforce. You can teach people technical work. You can teach people business acumen. This is something here that when you really look at how you can motivate people, I think it's one of the levers that we do not move enough. And it's something that we all have. We don't have to go read a book to be kinder. We don't have to go read and take classes on this. It's in us. We really do have these skills. We have to tap into them and be more cognizant of how we're using them. So why is this a critical development skill? And, I mentor, as I mentioned, so many different types of people from all different age groups and genders and walks of life. And I always say this is sometimes the forgotten personal development skill when I ask them, where they want to go, who are they, what are they working on? And I step back and I think whenever I talk about kind leadership, I think you need to get to know me a little. And that's about the opening up. It's about visibility. If you can be very visible and humble with people, people are more willing to work with you in a different way. So I go back to a defining moment. And I will ask each of you, thinking about this, do you have one? Do you have one of those defining moments that's going to set your path? And it might be your career path choices, it might be something else, but I have many defining moments. One of them that I picked was a mentor, and it was very early on in my career. I was working a little bit more deeply on the engineering side, and I was basically asking for more responsibility. I wanted to be a manager at that time. And he asked me, my boss at this moment, and he said, well, who are you as a leader, Leanne? We were having lunch and I could not answer this. I had not given thought to that question. I knew that I wanted to be moving up. I knew that I liked working with people, but I could not answer who I was as a leader. And that was the last time that would ever happen. I was going to go work on seeing who I am, who I wanted to emulate, what I liked, where I wanted to go in my path, so I could define who I was as a leader. I think that's really important. Every day now, even as I'm working in the job that I'm in, I tell people very directly who I am as a leader, what they can expect from me. And I think that's kindness, knowing where you're coming from right from the get-go, that I'm not going to just tell you in a review what I think. I'm going to tell you right now, if there's a problem, I'm going to call you and we're going to work it out. That's visibility to who I am as a leader. They're going to know exactly when I'm standing up in front of people that there is no hidden agenda. that it is what it is. They can ask me anything. We can have really tough discussions together. I actually coach all my employees, all the people that work for me, to know that this is not about being a senior vice president and you're not being, someone that they can't contact. I'm a leader. I want people to contact. I knew that very early on, that my gift was being with people. So if that is your gift and what you love the most, you have to weave that into your leadership. That has to be a big moment to it. And you know what? You kind of go back even a little further with this. And I always say we all have a story. And part of kind leadership is understanding and empathy for others. I just mentioned with COVID, we all went through crises in our own homes. I had a child running around behind my screen when I was trying to do client presentations because she really needed to tell me something. And you know what? I know that there's companies that actually were irritated when they saw kids in the screens or they saw these things. And I thought, that's not fair. You're exposed to this home life. You're seeing into my world. You're seeing into my office right now. You get to see where I work every single day as I'm working from home. And I think that story we have to have, and as understanding when you look at the people, even your own boss or those that you may be working with, your teammates, or those that work for you and your community, it's understanding and having empathy for others. And when I say this, okay, so very, very personal story. It is now more than 15 years ago. I went through stage 4 cancer. So 6 months to live. So I am very grateful for every day and every moment for all that I have, because you went to that brink of possibly not being able to be here 6 months at that point. To be able to go in and for people to see you because they don't know what's necessarily going on. It was the most caring company. They had the most amount of empathy for me. They actually paid for my cancer treatments. They treated me with such care and such respect as I went through one of the most challenging moments of my life. And they still are with me now. Those folks that were back then, it was my company, they're still people I care about today and care about me. That's how deep that relationship was. But they had an understanding and empathy for what I was going through in that moment. And it was back to when you look at those defining moments of who you are, you take those pieces. You take that understanding, you take that empathy, and now I turn it and I look at other people. I have to be able to say and put myself in their shoes and ask some questions. It's not just about, okay, did you get the project done? I always have to stop myself and go, how are you? And then they'll go, oh, I've got hail happening out here. I apologize. It might get a little loud. We've got a storm coming. But understanding those moments where they go, I'm fine. And then I'll go, really, how are you? Let's talk for a moment. Before we talk the project, before we talk what's going on, I need to know you're doing okay. I want that. And that's a connection. Back to if they know who I am as a leader, they know that I want the connection with my employees, with the people that work with me, with my colleagues. It's an important part of understanding that empathy. And again, we all have that story. So knowing that, and I think for each one of you as you're developing your career, knowing yourself and seeing that empathy for others will make you a stronger manager and leader. And when people look up to you, they're like, that is the person that understands more than just the business. They want us to succeed. They want us to be empowered. They understand that there's challenges and they want to work with me because you're willing to open up to them as well. And hopefully you see people be willing to open up to you because you are this visible to them. And this is seeing through a different lens. And what I mean by that is we all have our perception of the world. We just are. From the day we were born, through all of our histories and what we've gone through, we have a lens of how we see things. And part of kind leadership is you have to be able to put and look through a different lens sometimes. And you forget, this is where you really think about personal development. It's hard to look through a different lens. It's hard to see what someone else might be going through or thinking or doing. So this is tough. When I think of this, as you hear a lot of the work right now, if you're in leadership development, it's debiasing. Companies are coaching people and their colleagues on debiasing. It is continual and evolving. It's because we have assumptions. We bring these things to the table from all of our backgrounds. So you have to be able, you're biased by nature. We have to be able to figure out how we look at things with debiasing this, taking out a little bit of our own opinions and stepping away from that moment. And that's the lens. You can't walk away from everything of who you are, but you can take more time to think about it think about that communication and that interaction, because you took a different lens for that moment to not just think about yourself, but to think about those around you. And I think if I was to look at anything, this is one of the most important pieces when I coach. When people are talking about my manager is challenging, I don't know how to work with them. So here's the flip. It is not a boss talking about their workforce. It's the up way of, you know, a colleague saying, I don't know how to talk to my vice president. I don't know how to talk to my manager. I ask them the same thing. What's the lens? Are you thinking about how they're coming from it, how you're communicating, and what's working there? So we all have a role to play in this different lens and debiasing what we believe and what we think. So when it comes to the kind leadership, we all crave feedback from our leaders. Everyone craves feedback. You crave feedback in your home. You're in this constant motion of understanding is, how am I doing? Do people recognize what I'm doing? Are they listening? Do they really appreciate this? And that's part of all of this communication that we're building through here of why this is so very important. And again, I apologize for a storm that is heavily brewing here. So by craving this feedback from our leaders, you have to know how to give feedback. You have to know how to ask for feedback and receive feedback. It's those three pieces that are all important. And that's a partnership. It's a partnership of how we are going to deliver information to each other, how I'm going to interpret information when it's delivered to me, and how I communicate back what I believe I've heard as well. And it's an interwoven network of information. So let's debunk a little bit of one of the myths. Kindness is not weakness. And that's something where it's so interesting when we go in and we talk about it, when they're saying, well, if I'm vulnerable to my staff, they will see this as being weak. It is not. It is actually one of the strongest things you can do, because you have to be able to put yourself out back into seeing in a different lens, communicating in a different way. It's actually a stronger leader. I think those people that know how to connect with others are the strongest leaders I know. They have this natural gift, they have this ability, and they're thinking through all the business acumen, the technical acumen, and then about you. They're thinking about the people. And that is one of the things to me is so key and so important. So I preach to that. So when I'm doing the coaching and talking to people, we do talk about the kindness and how they're integrating this in and what it looks like in their communication when they have to provide feedback. You know, people are so worried about what and how to give feedback as well. I think this is such a great way to say, what does it mean to you and how do you communicate around this? So remember, it is not a weakness, it's an absolute strength. And when we talk about that delivery of feedback, it is incredibly critical. We all need it. It's how we get better. And there's people that can give great feedback, and there's others that you probably walk away thinking, I don't know what they even told me. And maybe there's times where you're like, I don't agree. But what I always say in the circle of feedback, it's quite the storm. What I always say in the circle of feedback is there's an interpretation, right? There's my lens, there's the lens of the person giving it, or vice versa. What did you hear? If I can give you any advice today as well, is what are you hearing from your manager? What are you hearing from the people around you? Tell them what you've heard. That's always something that people forget. They take some feedback and they walk away. They don't close that circle of the communication to say, all right, I heard you say this. Help me understand this. This is what I heard. This is what I heard you wanted me to work on. I actually don't know what that means, or I think I know what it means. If you're not having that dialogue, back to that great listening and that great communication, the feedback loop breaks down. And then feedback gets really, really challenging. I think one of the things when I'm coaching people have is where there's a difficult employee or a difficult boss even. How do you bring things forward? And that's where I go to. When you start with the point of kindness, are you doing this from a place of good? Are you coming to someone to tell them this because you actually care? Then you've already started the kind leadership movement. You've already said, I have to tell them a very difficult thing, but I will do this with kindness. This is for the betterment of the team. It's for the betterment of their own development. And it's going to be how you deliver it, because there's very hard things to deliver. But I always said, if I can come at the end of my day and go, that was really challenging, but I know I needed to do it because they needed to hear that, and I was kind. I was actually saying what I believe in. And I don't wait. I don't wait for feedback, and I don't want others to wait for feedback, because I don't think that's kind either if people are waiting to tell you what they think is working or not working. So this is a whole other topic on how to deliver feedback. But I think, you know, if you get a chance in your mentoring, you could probably dig more into this, because I'm a big believer in how you coach around the critical aspect of feedback. And so, as I said, that's taking that moment of how it's received and internalized. So the big thing, who are you? This is the work you get to go do that I started with when someone asked me who I was as a leader. This is our behavior and our development. It's beyond our technical acumen. It's beyond what we're doing with business development. So it's really changing yourself as a leader and knowing this. Can you define yourself as a leader? In coaching moments, I had that moment where I could not define myself. I have many coaching moments with folks now that will say, I would like to be vice president. Then you go, great, why? Okay, maybe it makes sense, maybe it doesn't, but who are they? If I don't know who they are as a leader, it's a really hard thing to support someone to become a vice president or a manager or change a role. You need to know and be able to sit in front of a manager and say, this is exactly how I'm leading in the office. This is how I'm a leader for these events or these activities or these projects. Because it doesn't have to be about being a manager to begin with. It's just what's around you. Being able to say how you have taken that on, how you have improved something, how you work with your colleagues, and how you're bettering the culture in your office. That's defining yourself as a leader. When you go in every single day as an employee, you're an engineer, a geologist, a geophysicist, whatever, financial person, the marketing, you walk in there. Do you know who you are, and are you operating true to who that is? That's the definition of who you are as a leader. You should be able to tell your mentor this like that. You should know this definition. You should be able to tell people in your reviews. You should be able to communicate it back and forth so people really get to see how you operate. And then do you see great leadership you wish to emulate? Take that on. There's people I just respect that when I see they have handled things in certain ways, I know that's what I want to be doing as well. It often reminds me of maybe how I've let something slip when I see that greatness in front of me. So you can always be learning. And I think if I'll be, by the time I finish my career, I should always be learning. When I finish my career and I'm in the community, I should always be learning. You never stop those moments and seeing the greatness of others around you as well, and that appreciation. Defining yourself as a leader is the plan. You have to have a plan. So if today you do not have a plan, what a great thing to begin. What a great thing to start with. And hopefully kind leadership is part of how you look at yourself as a leader, but you will take on those pieces of in this career, how you want to build, because that will also give who should be your mentor, who you should be doing mentee work with, who you should be looking at and learning from and helping to define those pieces. This is the big one. Are you proud of yourself today? Can you say that by the end of the day, you're really proud at how you behaved? And if you're not, it's okay. There's always tomorrow to start again. But being proud of our behavior and our communication is very important. And I always ask people to reflect upon how they did something. So I've had people that have had to deliver very hard communication or very upset with someone. And I have to ask them, are you proud of how you did that? I want to know. And sometimes they're like, I could have done better. Well, that's okay. There's always tomorrow, but did you learn from it? And I have a lot of learnings. There's no perfection in this. We are all a constant evolving component because this is the people skills. Technical skills, you can challenge for that. This is hard. This is a softer skill. And so you will make mistakes. And I think that's part of it is, are you willing though to change and evolve and share openly your development? I will sit in front of my team and always say I'm not perfect. So if there's things you see that I'm doing, tell me. That makes me better. It means I'm listening. It means I'm communicating. And I think it helps me go for the next day of, you know what, I really need to work on that. I didn't communicate that as effectively as I could have. And it's amazing because I thought I really did a good job and that audience didn't think the same. So I will work on that because now I see the lens they were seeing that communication through. Back to there's an evolution and a strength to being vulnerable. A great leader, this is the kind of leadership that you're going to weave in. Vulnerability is massive. I have such respect for leaders that I know all over in all kinds of companies for how vulnerable they are. When you were going through the crisis of COVID and companies having these financial crises, I watched great leaders step up and ask people for help. That's vulnerable. That's not saying I have all the answers, because no one had all the answers during that moment of crisis. But people were willing to rally around them because they had the trust, because they've developed those pieces, because they are good and people want to support together as a community. So we're not perfect. Kindness is about forgiving too. And so as I'm coaching, I always have to remind people that your managers aren't perfect, your vice presidents, your senior vice presidents, nor is your CEO. So there's a forgiveness that goes both ways from that. It's communication. Those soft skills are never perfect, but you have to be willing to come back, evolve, and change the next day. So where this comes to, and it keeps building that story, is we build a deeper engagement and commitment. It's a culture connection. This is what people want. It's what I want. I want to feel part of a team. I want, where I think there was the saying of, I think you can relate to a soccer player. They get traded to a new team. They have to put on a new jersey and they have to play for that new team. You want to be part of it. It's a deep engagement and commitment. So back to the defining yourself as a well-rounded leader is going to take a deep commitment. It's like your technical development and your business acumen, but that helps develop a culture we all want to be part of. We're craving to be part of a culture. If you step away from the business side, look at your communities, look at what you're seeing in the news, look at countries in challenge right now. Beyond what's happening with COVID, there is uprisings everywhere. And this is because we want to be part of the story. We want to be part of a culture that we can really relate to. So when you have powerful leaders that can help bring people together versus tear them apart, you see a unified country, you see a unified city, you see a unified community, a workplace. It's because the culture is very strong and the leadership is something people want to believe in. You can build that part right now. We all want to be part of it. It's a personal and professional development. It has no boundaries, as I was saying. So where we're talking about this commitment with colleagues is this really does build retention and loyalty of employees. It's improving productivity and improves that long-term sense of there's something greater. When I look at developing very technical products or doing something new in the data sciences or creative, the people that are very loyal will come with you for anything. They're willing to work additional hours because they know that when I sit in front of them, they know exactly where I am. They know exactly how we're together working. It's a partnership. Those are people that are partnered deeply with me because we have gotten to that relationship together. And you can do amazing things. That's what changes the business. And it's in you to give. I love this saying, it's free. Kindness is free. You don't need to go buy books. You don't need anything else. It's in each and every one of us. You have to tap into it. I think there's many people that forget about it, but it's there. That's the most important part. You don't need to do anything else. You just need to be cognizant of your behavior and really work on that part, but it's free. You don't need to go to school for this. You don't need any other aspects, but surround yourself with people that emulate this. And I think you will do very, very well. So that is a short touch on how I see kind leadership. And I hope it will inspire each and every one of you to think about aspects of it, because there's so many topics that you can drill down into. It is a deep, deep topic for me. I believe in this. I believe, as I said, it's vital. I believe it's a skill that, a soft skill, they used to call it. I don't think it's a soft skill anymore. I think it's something that every company is really trying to figure out. Again, as these challenges, this community of us in 2020 around the world has come forward. More and more CEOs I talk to, they want to know about this. They want to tap into this. They want talks about this. So now it's up for you. It's for you to take this away. It's for you to lead this. It's for you to believe in this. It's for you to look at yourself and be part of your community around you, by your home, in your business, with your friends, with your colleagues. And that development makes a very big difference to what you are going to do. So I will leave it at that and thank everyone for having me. And I'll take, if there's any questions, Sylvia or Anna, I'm happy to take that as well.
Sylvia, você está em mudo. Sylvia?
Okay, Leanne. Thanks very much. I think it was very nice. Very, very, very good to hear that. I think it's very inspiring to everybody that's hear us. And now we have time for a few questions and answers. I think Ana Paula has something there.
Yes, I already have some questions and some comments as well. And thanks, Liane. Wonderful, wonderful. I enjoyed so much this 15 minutes. And one of the comments is that, how wonderful webinar like coaching and all these reflections and the questions that you need to do to ourselves. So the people is writing that. But you have one question from Daniele from Petrobras. She asking, do you believe it is easier to human to be kind?
So I hate to say this, we all have different skills because of gender does come into this, right? I laugh because a lot of gentlemen that work for me, they always say it's easier for me because I break down walls faster and how I operate. But I will say I've had gentlemen that have operated this way, that they are the kindest, most foundational people I've ever met. So I think sometimes you can say a little bit of gender plays in, but on the flip, I have incredible mentors that changed me. And sad to say, I did not actually have a lot of female mentors at the time. There just was not a lot in the oil and gas business. So most were men. And I saw this, they were the kindest, they were the most caring and empathetic, and they taught me so very much. But I know lots of men that I coach, they really struggle with it. They struggle with how they communicate and are able to tap into those things. When I tell them about, how to work and coach people, they're just like, it's just very hard for me because I want to tell them, just point blank, this is what's wrong. And I'm like, gotta come from it from a different way. And so there is a bit of a struggle.
Okay. Liane, I have a question here from Cristina Pinho, our friend here from IBP. And she asks, don't you think compassion is connected to kindness? People should exercise their compassion to other people, and how everything goes together there.
Yeah, you have nailed it. We talked about those words that surround this. I can think of many more words. It is a compassion for people. We're all craving that. Look at your community around you. Look at what you're looking in the news, and you see these incidents that are happening. It's a compassion for communities. I really do put myself in these places, and I think you probably take on a little bit more burden and anxiety around some of it, but it is a compassion, and being able to look at the world and the people with you very empathetically, very compassionately. That is kindness.
Liane, tell me, looking what we are seeing these recent years, although we are talking about kindness, kind leadership, do you think that's the way things are going? Because looks like maybe that's why we're talking about that, because I don't think this is is not winning. I see some kind of opposite to that. What's your perception?
That's why we're talking about this here, because each one of you on this call has an opportunity to be different. And no, there is some people that are not operating this way. My CEO at IHS Markit, Zugla, basically has taken this on. It was one of the topics we did for our own company during a week of just different aspects of culture and caring. And he realized just how much people are craving for this topic in the organization. And he's like, I didn't think it was that needed. I just thought it existed. So back to being cognizant of it. We have so many leaders, and you can see around the world, we can talk political leaders, we can talk business leaders, medical lawyers, all across industries. There is not acting of kindness. There's communities not acting of this. There's people to people not acting in this way. That's why this is where it's a moment for you. It's a moment for each of us to, are you proud of yourself at the end of the day, and be thinking about this. And again, there's some people that can't see outside their own lens. They think they're amazing. Their way is the only way. Their vision of, gender inequality or color is their only way of race. That's not going to work. But there's more of us on the other side that can act and do this. And so it's an uprising. And I think when I look at my own daughter as she's, coming into a very, very young lady, I coach her for this. I coach her on kindness, because it starts here. It starts in my home. It starts when she goes to school, how she cares for others, how we think about bullying, how we think about talking to her friends when something is wrong. I have to help that. I have to help give her that, because that coaching that I can deliver for her will be who she's going to be when she goes into the workplace, because someone has helped her to understand that and to think. We all have that place, each one of you. So if you're on this call, you have a job. You have it. Take one piece, take one thing that you think you can change, that you're like, you know what, I could do better with that. That one change, ripple effects. Someone will go home that night and say, oh my goodness, my manager came to me and I had the best discussion. Today was the best day ever. You just changed that. And then their whole family has a great night because you did that. You may have talked to a colleague in a different way and they're just like, they get it. They get that I have a parent at home that's sick. That felt so good that someone understood that. You just changed that one person. So imagine if each one of you, I don't know how many people are on the call today, but if each one of you picks something, you know, maybe there's 100 positive things that just went out. That's kindness. That's the leadership part. And so it's not just a business leadership of kindness, it's a humanity. And I think there is a screaming in the world for this topic. And I think people need to pick it up. And that's why I love it so much. I want to be part of that movement. So sorry, that was a longer answer, but very, very passionate about it, because it's not happening everywhere where it's so needed.
And you are part of this movement and you are doing a lot about it. We have a lot of compliments here on the side. I have another 3 questions here. I will try to pass it to you. From Laura Mastella, how to balance kindness and boundaries?
Absolutely. Yeah. And really great question. So we almost need to do a coaching session on the boundary, because there is a moment of kindness. I have to deliver very, very challenging things to people where I need action done, right? And there's going to be boundaries around this. And I think it's that moment of, you know, understanding what you're going to say to someone. I almost sometimes tell people, write it down. What are those bullet points of the key message that you have to get out? Because you don't want to be wishy-washy. You don't want to give someone a hug and just say it's going to be okay. There's an action that needs to happen. So can you deliver the action knowing you're not there to hurt someone's feelings? You're genuinely doing this, looking at that person through your lens, a little bit of their lens, and how can you get that communicated? So it's a bit of a practice. And I actually ask people, if you have a mentor, I hate to say it, it's hard, but practice that. Practice a coaching moment, practice a communication moment. And it could be feedback, it could be talking and presenting about your project and how you want to do something. It could be another piece to it. But then you can see if there's that moment of communication where you are on a project with another colleague and you need to tell them, I need you to step up, or you need to deliver something, you're still going to do that. That doesn't change. This is not a weakness. This is just being more thoughtful. When you sit with that person and go, hey, you're not delivering this side of the project, let's talk about it. What's going on in your world right now? Everything okay? Is there anything you're missing, you know, from a skill to the project wasn't clear? Is there something happening at home? That's kind, right? Before you delve into telling them you're not doing your job. So I think there is, like, you have to think about, and I'm without knowing a specific moment, taking that moment and then figuring out, as you said, there's a boundary to it and what that kindness is going to look like, because toughness has kindness. There's things I've had to let people go from a job. They were not the right person. They were not it. And at the end of the day, I was actually kinder to them to have them leave the company than to stay. And I knew that. I was proud of what I did because I did try, but I was okay with that. So I had to say that actually was the kindest thing. And now their career, they're in what they love doing and it's perfect. It just wasn't a good cultural fit. That was kindness. So without knowing examples, we could always talk about more, but it is a very good coaching top opportunity.
Okay, very good. I think that's very important what you said, because people sometimes confuse kindness of not doing anything.
Correct.
So,
yep, and you cannot confuse them. It is, you have to be fierce. Leadership and running businesses or technical or your own projects, it's still a fierceness, right? You want to deliver things. So don't confuse the two. Don't ever let you think that you're going to let someone off the hook and not have a discussion with them. The kindness is having that discussion with them. The kindness is being honest. It's how you deliver it. You can deliver it terribly and you can really hurt people, or you could deliver it with kindness. So yes, it is a coaching thing, and I work very, very hard at that because it is an important, it's a communication of how people interpret what you have to say.
And a very important point that you touch is it's not weak. If you are kind, it doesn't mean that you are weak. You are just kind because you would like to be more open and in open dialogue and
be sincere
on the same direction. Exactly. It's not weak.
Sylvia,
do you have another question there, no?
Oh, please, if you have another question,
okay.
I'd be happy.
Oh, yeah, please. Milena asked here, just a comment. In this pandemic, brought to outside the personal side of view from everybody that is working in home office. And she asks how women in leadership can take advantage from that, from being outside the personal side of the view. Also, I imagine is that what she means, I don't know if you got it, but if you are dealing with all the circumstances in your home office. So it's brought to the leaders in the company. How can we take, how the women can take, women leadership can take advantage from that because now it's exposed.
It is. And, COVID brought a lot of challenges to everyone's life. A lot of our female leaders, employees were taking on a lot of the childcare at home during this time and having to work a job. It changed. I had male coworkers with the exact same, so it's not one or the other. But what I will say is we actually had a lot of really strong leaders, they're female, that stepped up in our company to actually coach our CEO on what to think about. So there was an opportunity that I really watched because they were able to bring a perspective of, now I have 3 kids at home with me. You have to recognize what you can do in that work part. And they really stepped up and they actually helped coach HR. They helped bring insight and talk to executives. And so I was probably one of there's not a lot of female executives. So being on the panel, I was able to give a different insight to it. So my job was to speak forward, to listen to what was happening through my organization and to bring that forward. But I had a lot of female leaders and colleagues that came to me. Again, that's a great connected network. They weren't afraid to tell you what they needed the CEO to hear. They weren't afraid to tell you what those challenges were. And I watched them not just tell me, they stepped up to create networks to help people. They stepped up to help to do things where there was, I had some young ladies that they basically grabbed a network call so they could get together and just have a place they used to meet in the office, and then they were able to meet there and decompress from the day. They did it online. They did that themselves. But I think the most uprising that I saw was they were so honest about what was happening in their homes. The CEO got to see that, and he actually brought policies forward. He gave people additional holidays to help with the stress. He put forward an entire health week where people could join. There was like online yoga classes. It was for everyone. It was inclusive, but it was listening. So I saw a lot of our female leaders, they were able to stand up. And I think that's the cool part is you bring so much. You're 50% of the workforce, maybe more in some places, maybe a little bit less, but that voice is so key. And if you're not saying anything, no one will know. No one will know what your lens is. So I loved it because there's an honesty and a feedback there. And they were so afraid to say something. They were so afraid to say they had daycare issues. I'm like, please don't be afraid. That's your life. That's your reality. Now that I know that, what do we do? How do we help you? How do we change your hours? How do we make sure people know that you just can't be on those calls with your camera on because you're looking after a old baby, right? Like people, I'm like, let's talk about that. But that's what you bring forward. And you know what? I'm able then, because my job is to be able to take this information and bring it to the people that are my peers and give them a different lens perspective of the young ladies and mothers and people that are looking after whatever the scenario was. Stress. Lots of people, it wasn't about childcare. It was actually anxiety. They were lonely. It was like taking on more work because you didn't leave your office. You're in your home and they just kept working. And they were lonely and they're stressed because they liked seeing people in the office. I needed others to see that. So stepping up with that was an amazing moment, I think, in a really big movement that a lot of our female colleagues and leaders brought forward. Not being afraid.
Excellent, excellent. And I think we are getting close to the end. And before
I have more questions here. If you have any time, Sylvia, I have at least for 2. I will do very quickly, okay?
And so before she, let me see. And I also want her give a message for those who are listening to this presentation at the end. One thing they can do today to improve their behavior towards kindness, kind leadership. So you do this at the end. Go, Anna, please.
I will read the both of them so you can answer, okay? The first one is, what tools do you suggest to be used to be kind at the same time to communicate effectively? And the other one is, do you believe the corporate voluntarism might empower kind leadership?
So the tools that you can incorporate, and I kind of go back to, this is a free, there's so many good webinars you can watch on kindness and leadership, and incredible leaders. There's political leaders that I absolutely respect around the world, and they talk about how they cared about their country and what they were doing. So you can start to pick up these types of tools to do this. I think taking this moment right here, this is a tool. This is honestly a tool for you, and watch it over again. Go back and look at those points, and then I want you to take an action plan. You know, back to the one thing you can do, it's your action. You can do nothing, or you can do something. So are you going to do those action plans? And I think your second question was, are companies going to change towards this?
Yes, how the voluntarism inside of the companies can help with the kindness.
Yeah, and I think it's, you know what, it's a two-part. I think an uprising from the people demanding this type of communication from their leadership. You have power. You all have a voice. Everyone can provide feedback, no matter where you are in the organization. Let them know. I think that's a really important thing. I had lots of people I've coached that like, could you call my manager and tell them they're not being kind? And I have to laugh, and I'm like, well, how about I coach you here? And you know, we can talk through that, because I said I can tell you, we can work through that. That's a mentoring relationship. So if you're struggling, find a mentor. Find someone you can talk about these things that are happening in your own communication. And I think there is an uprising in companies, not all. I see, you know, obviously depends on CEOs' views. We have some very progressive CEOs that I look at now, and they are bringing these pieces forward. They're seeing how they can look at diversity in different ways, and the culture, how important it is to the success of these companies. And it's because each one of you demand it. The generations coming up are demanding this. And so we all have an obligation. And I'm not doing it because someone's demanding it. I'm doing it because I believe in this. I've believed in it from, you know, the day I walked into my career of who I was. So it just happens to be, I want to talk about it, but each one of you have a voice, so you can use it. And that's the biggest thing. So you're trying to ask yourself, maybe, how do you do that? But it is using a voice. It's being not afraid. It's being vulnerable enough to tell someone, I'd like to see this change. This is not working. You are not caring about how our work environments just change. We need to talk about this, because I can be more productive if people understood that better, or whatever the scenario.
Excellent, very good. I guess we need to stop. We have to finish. There are some other questions, maybe some related to this. How do I make my boss?
How do I call my boss? Yeah.
How can my boss learn that? That's several questions here about this.
Yeah.
And but the message is that you have to do your part, right?
It's your part. It's absolutely the one thing. If I could say anything, it's play your part. Your boss may never get it. I don't know, but you can. And the people that you manage can, and the people that work with you can see you change. Your community, your home, that's you. So the one thing you asked me that you can take away today is look at yourself. Take a really hard look at yourself and how you operate and how you're doing this. And that's where you start this movement. If you walk away and do nothing, then this failed. If you walk away and do something, this won. So that is it.
Okay.
Easier said than done, but hopefully it ignites some passion in some people.
Okay.
And I loved that point that you emphasized to us, no? Because to have a career, you have to have a plan, a technical career, you have to have a plan to the technical career, where I would like to be. And to be a leader, you have to have a plan as well. And I loved these topics and these points that you raised today, because that what the leader there can I be, no? And what I need to do to achieve there. what I would like to do. That's so good. Thank you. It was amazing.
All of you, I wish you all well. I wish you empowerment. I wish you to like look at a better community around you and be the change. I mean, that saying doesn't go anywhere. It's you are the ones that will change this. So I really appreciate you having me here. It's been just a lot of fun questions.
So my friends and colleagues that are here, Leanne, thank you very much. I think it was very inspiring. I'm sure everybody, all of us have something, you add something to all of us. And I think it's very important that to do our part and be so important to have all this young generation that even seeing that things are not going this way. That's why we have to be here talking about this, to emphasize that we have to change, have to help to change. So with this, I think IBP, I would like to thank IBP for the opportunity to be here to bring Leanne Todd. Thanks for IHS for letting you come. Ana Paula Lougon, my colleague, thanks. And I think we're gonna end now. And if you have questions, send them. That will be forward to Leanne and to any one of us. So once more, thank you. So
thank you so much, everybody.
Now, okay? Bye to everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you,
next
Leanne.
Next time, next webinar, next month. Okay? Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.